What's going on, Bellfleur? Gwen the Recovering Witch here, also known as Jen. Welcome to this segment and welcome back for Mindful Recovery Mondays, where I share my sober vlogs of not recovering from being a witch, but a witch recovering from alcoholism or anything else that in my life that I need to recover from. I thought about changing my name again, and that's just the Gemini in me. And I was like, nah, I ain't gonna do that to y'all. I don't want to confuse anybody. And I already did it once, so I'm just gonna skip that bit. So today we're diving into step 7 of Deirde Anne Hebert's book of The Pagan in Recovery. And I know I said step 6 was pretty short, but this step is just as short too, or even shorter. But that still means that it's not less important, because it's still important. So before I dive in, if you are new to my channel, I welcome you and thank you for clicking on this video. My Monday viewers are my recovery warriors. So if you are suffering from any addiction or looking for ways to improve on your spiritual viewpoints, I welcome you to subscribe, like, comment, and hit the notification bell when I post videos. So like I said, if you're looking for new ways on building on your spiritual life and maybe you'd like these videos, I recommend you go ahead and follow. And in the words of Prince, my favorite, dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing that we call life. Amen. Amen. So let's dive in. So step 7 out of the PIR book is humbly implore deity to help us effect that change. While out of Alcoholics Anonymous, the big book, it says humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. So a couple things I want to remind y'all. I got sober way before I started declaring myself as an eclectic pagan witch. I noticed that when I started hearing the word shortcomings or character defects, I've noticed in the last couple years that I was really irked by that phrasing of those words. So in this path, I've learned that my shortcomings or character defects, they are essential. They're essential for me to understand and to learn from. This is what builds my character development as a person, not writing a book, and what makes me human, and that's what makes you human. This is what makes us unique, and we are all not the same. Our personalities are what basically differentiates us, and this is how people can mix in certain groups and how some of us just don't jive very well together. So the most important point of this step that is expressed in both books regarding this step is humility. We encounter that word again, and we acknowledge and admit that in the very beginning of this whole entire process is that our lives had become unmanageable and something has run amok. So we had our addiction, our behaviors, drinking too much, and it had really started to kind of crumble into the other parts of our life, which was making it unmanageable. So at that point, when we get to step 1, we've humbled ourselves and acknowledging that we couldn't do it alone. We are looking for outside help and seeing a way that we can come out from the other side of this. So once we admit that our lives have become unmanageable, we are humbling ourselves when we are seeking help outside of self, whether it be in a recovery center, going to a meeting, counseling, seeking outside help, that it's not something that's a self-will from myself and something that I've tried or going away around it. So this is definitely where the humility starts to come in, because we typically wouldn't ask for help from someone. So then down the line in the process, we are making a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, where we are writing out our strengths and our weaknesses basically. And we come to terms with the things that we have done, what we see, and acknowledge. This is basically the shadow work for us. So when we are doing the shadow work, I am looking at myself as a independent person that is not involved in the situation that I may have wrote down. What I am doing is I am viewing myself kind of like an outer body experience outside, looking at myself, my behaviors, what I did, and then maybe also another person, what they could have experienced, what happened with them, and just taking it for what it is for face value. That is basically shadow work. While I'm assessing these feelings, emotions, behaviors that are being displayed in this certain situation, this is where the weaknesses that I have, I can integrate them as strengths. When I realize what the weaknesses that I have or what they can be, I notice how I can integrate them and how to change them in my life and become the person that I aspire to be. Hebert discusses the point in the book about the AA Big Book that it had been written, and it is written, at a time where Christianity was heavily written in relation to in the book. And we've talked about that before. That's what sometimes most of us, we just kind of go, no thank you. So let's kind of look back at the time when this book is written, the AA Big Book. Go back to 1939. When this first edition was published, think about what was happening in the world. We had World War II, the end of the Spanish Civil War in Spain. There's also the formation of starting the funding for the nuclear bomb. And the Russians are invading Finland. There's natural disasters all over the country, not all over the country, but in different parts of the world. It affected those people, and there were a lot of deaths. We had these wars overseas, and the U.S. becomes involved. Of course, more people are going to look for answers in spirituality when things they don't seem that they're going right. What do we do when we are in fear or we don't have an answer? We turn to spirituality for enlightenment. Several years before that, look at 1935. What happened in 1935? We are still going through the Great Depression. 1935, Akron, Ohio. That's where starting with the first group of what was evolved, what was going into AA. And people were still recovering from the Great Depression, and so you turn to a vice to drink because life was pretty hard. Then also you have Germany taking their rights away from the Jews. This is before we're going off into war. And that's what it leads up to. And neighboring countries, they're trying to claim territory and fight with each other. So there was a lot that was uncertain. And so for Christianity being such the focal point in that time where things were so uncertain, of course this book was written to help those who did not know what to do and trying to seek some sort of spiritual guidance. So if you think about today, we're talking about awakenings. We have pagans in recovery, Wiccans in recovery, many other spiritualists that are in recovery, Buddhists in recovery. We are trying to seek answers to find wholeness in oneself when things are chaotic in the life. So here we are awakening, and we're either turning to the church or going inward for guidance and trying to turn to higher self or any higher power being that for an answer. That would be our independent practice, but we're still seeking. The difference between, I guess, the formed religion like Christianity and pagans with Christians, there is established organizations, there's established churches, there is established literature there, and they come together and believe specific acts that were done by God, and they believe it to be true. For us, we have more of the liberating benefits, and we don't have authoritative texts to follow. We don't meet in groups of churches unless we are in a covenant together. We have many books on present day that we could talk about in history, that we can look at different cultures and folk practice. I'm sorry guys, I can't talk today. But our practices are our own spirituality, and that's the main point, that we choose our following our path And so the whole reason why I brought up this whole thing about where AA originating, what was going on with the circumstances, Christianity, and talking about paganism for us, or heathenry, whatever you're following. This is what leads us to the character defects thing, okay? So hear me out. So what was deemed as character defects, and this is the point Hebert brings in the book, the character defects and the shortcomings, those were listed as evil or sinful. And so even in the 12 steps and 12 traditions, it does go into detail regarding these 7 deadly sins. So you have lust, gluttony, envy, greed, sloth, wrath, and pride. Initially there were 8, and in the 4th century a Christian monk named Evagrius Ponticus, try to say that 3 times fast, okay? He wrote what was known as the 8 evil thoughts. So you had gluttony, lust, avarice, anger, sloth, sadness, vainglory, and pride. There is an awesome article when I was getting this together for you guys. I'll post it. This is from history.com. And these 8 or 7, however you want to call them, these sins, the monk was using this specifically for other monks that were following along the spiritual path. This wasn't meant to go into for the public, to be honest. When these sins are deemed as deadly, it's what they mean by deadly is it is the death of the soul. Depending on what mortal sin that we're following, that is what's going to bring death to our soul. And so if we don't do penance and so on, then that's going to be our downfall. And then you go to hell for eternity and blah, blah, blah. But the good thing is that as pagans, we don't believe in hell. Hell, H-E-L, most of us would, the Norse mythology. But quite honestly, she's very interesting, very lovely, and sometimes very scary. But that is besides the point, but I digress. So we can look at these 7 deadly sins as like demons, and the demons just need to be exorcised, okay? So demons being exorcised from our body. Or we can look at them as something that's just gone awry in ourselves that needs to just be reined in a bit. And look at, to learn, analyze, and just have it tamed to coexist within oneself. I prefer option 2. But sometimes option 1 would be really cold because, you know, some of us occultists have really seen some crazy stuff. So I'm just saying. Safety, protection, yeah. But again, option 2 would probably be the safest, but I digress. So we ask for the help of something that is greater than us to transform us, and instead of removing overnight, you know, and we're trying to get these defects, quote unquote, to their right use. Side note, don't trust anybody who says that they have humility or they are the most humble person in the room. That's a lie. What speaks is through action and effort, not declaring the things that have been done. That is a good deed. That is self-sacrificing to look good in front of other people. Doing a good deed and not getting caught with no expectation in return. Doing things because you want to. Again, no expectation in return. Not being caught. That is humility. We are going about reforming ourselves and transforming. Something has to be given up and sacrificed. And the story of Odin is made into an example out of Hebert's book. And so Odin is hung up to a tree for 9 days and he has no food or water. And the reason why this happens is because he is making the sacrifice of trying to get the runes. And Odin is seeking greater wisdom. So he felt that the wisdom of the runes was worth the sacrifice. So just as much with the Christians and looking at Jesus Christ, Jesus made the ultimate sacrifice, right? And he gave his life to pay for our sins, if that's how we're looking at it. And isn't that something? We learn about sacrifice and we gain wisdom. And here in both stories, we have humility. Sometimes our egos need to be knocked down. In the rooms, I grew up in public, and sometimes it has not been very pretty. Even here on this platform on YouTube, I have cringeworthy videos. I'm sure that I look back and how childish I had been, and things happened since then. And I can definitely say the same thing. Growing up in public is ugly. We have to go through these life-altering experiences to learn and transform us because they teach us. And it's to understand that sometimes these humiliating experiences can transform us into the people we would like to become, that we look up to so much at times. I will keep this very brief. So if we think back to steps 4 and 5, we wrote down our inventory of the things that were holding us back and sharing it with someone we could trust and giving it to a higher power. And probably what we found out about ourselves could be a hard pill to swallow. So even sharing the things with someone that we trust, we kind of go in and we try to brave it, and there's still a fear there. There's this fear that when I'm willing to share something with you that I've been holding on to for so long, there's going to be this judgment. And sometimes, yes, there are some things that are shocking, some things that are very humiliating, some things that are super horrible, and that fear of the judgment is what really hinders us not to want to share things and not to be seen. Because remember, I said ego and fear go hand in hand, right? And ego doesn't want to feel pain, and it doesn't want to feel fear. It does not like it one single bit. So if I'm putting on a certain face because that is my characteristic, that is my ego of what I want you to see, if there is some sort of puncture wound into the ego, it's almost like I'm running around naked with no pants on, you know? And that's super embarrassing. That's humiliating. I need to find pants. Don't go spiraling down on that road of being in fear of the judgment. Again, we find somebody that we can trust and connect with and release. And when we have someone that is listening, this is another awesome point. The person that's listening who is trying to help us and see our willingness to do this, of course they want us to see us succeed, right? And they know what we're trying to do, and the other person can't come in with a judgment whatsoever. They're there to listen. Because if I come in with the attitude of judgment, then we really truly don't understand what we that we are human and what we are trying to accomplish here. There's a bigger picture. So ego comes in once again, not from you, but maybe the other person, and once again to not humble ourselves, but put us in comparison with one another, and we get this whole thing of better than or less than. And this is where I've had to remember at times I can still see myself in other people, and I am still capable of doing things that another person has shared with me. It makes me no better or no worse, okay? Again, granted, the things that may have happened to certain people or what people have experienced in certain scenarios, it's horrific. And we may not be able to understand or put ourselves in those shoes for the other person, but to hold space and understand and just listen without a one-sided opinion or suggestion, it brings equality and oneness to bring into that moment. If bias and judgment come in, then we are missing the bigger picture, like I said. And these are the critical moments for us in step 6 and in step 7 that we acknowledge that the things that have gone awry with us, we want to do better, and we are making efforts to do better, and we ask our higher power for help, and we are humbling ourselves to do better and take action, and we're asking for that help. Whether someone keeps us accountable, we keep ourselves accountable, that's our promise, and we're making a promise to deity, higher power, or whoever, that these are the steps I'm willing to take to move forward and become better. So maybe there's people that we admire and we see what actions that they do that are good deeds, and we work and we promise ourselves, like I said, that we might not come close to them, but we're going to try to take the steps and strive to be. We look at, maybe I haven't been the best employee, maybe I've been calling into work, maybe I've been showing up late, leaving early, missing a lot of days. And so I'm coming in with a crappy attitude. I used to come in with a crappy attitude. So if I am being honest with myself in these points, and I can answer, yes, I've been late, yes, I come in with a crappy attitude, so on and so forth, what can I do that's opposite? Now at this point, we do prayer or meditation. We're taking that time and being in alignment. I do, like in the big book where it talks about we have a new employer, and that is a higher power. Not the employer that we go to work to, but how can I best serve my deity? And that's where, if I stop thinking about myself for a minute, how I can be of service to others. And I can go to work on time, not call out, come in with a better attitude because I have prayer and meditation, and realize I'm not the one running the show. Maybe in parenting too, maybe not spending enough time with the kids, or maybe certain behaviors or certain things. I noticed in times where I've had to take deep breaths when my husband and I were parenting, and not crapping a brick, okay? But this has helped me tremendously on making the priorities of what I can give away and sacrifice in order to be there for the really more important moments. And that is what made the life better and possible. So step 7's ritual is where you will get a pen, a paper, a bowl, a small candle to light, and a potted plant. And what you're going to do with these pieces of paper, you're going to write what your weaknesses or defects are. And each one, you're going to pick up each one of those weaknesses, and you're going to meditate with it. And in turn, when you're thinking about what that weakness looks like to you, what steps you are going to take in action in return to make that weakness into something better and transmute it. So it is very therapeutic, and then once you're done, you get the ashes and you put them into the potted plant and you're watering them. And at that point with the plant, that becomes an extension of you. If you cannot work with fire, I understand. You may want to okay. I know there's some weird stuff going on here, but I don't know what. Okay. Y'all are trying to get my attention, right? So if you're unable to actually do fire, burn the candle, or do something outside as far as like fire code violations or anything, you can modify this ritual. I think I did mention at one point before how you can get sunflower seeds and meditating one by one as a weakness, and again looking at the weakness and what other action you are going to take that is the opposite, that is going to be a betterment to you on transforming into this new person that you are aspiring to become. And you can put it in the bird feeder, or you can toss it where in your backyard. I know I have a lot of finches that come, sometimes crows, and they will come pick them up and they'll eat, and that's left as an offering. And the way that I look at it is, if they take a seed, that is them answering this petition, then they are going to send it off like a messenger and help me transform, because that is my petition, and we are both working together and meeting in the middle. All right, folks. Well, that ends and concludes step 7. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Just a reminder, give this a like if you did, and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and please comment if you have done this ritual, step 7. If you read the book, step 7, where are you with your steps if you are working a 12-step program? And again, make this collaborative, make this a community, and be interactive. I will see you in the next video, which will be step 8. And until next time, be well.